Memches Amud Bey. So the Mishnah has spoken what? Right. So the subject the Mishnah was talking about that the change from the father's domain to the husband's domain is what makes her in the sewer. Not only if the actual had relations, that's in the sewer, but even if just tikonas l'chuppah. And then the Mishnah went on to say that Masira, that also giving over on the road, the delegation of the father gave over to the delegation of the husband. That's also considered Masira. That's also considered Rishus Habal. Yesterday, the Gemara spoke about as far as Truma. The main subject was Truma. Does it mean that she's not eating Truma also at that point or not? And they came out of Machlokas, and Rashi said it depends on the reason why she didn't eat Truma is because that she might give it to her family, the Truma that she got to, and when she's out of the house, that will be with her. On the other hand, maybe the reason is because of Simpon, that he might find that she's Balas Mum and he doesn't want the marriage is off, and therefore she wasn't allowed to eat Truma. Rashi puts that in, the Gemara doesn't say so, but the Gemara came out at the end that she does not eat Truma, even though she's Masar, it doesn't make enough to eat Truma, only when she's Mamish goes Chuppah, only when she comes into his house. And now we start a new sugya. Tana, about 10 lines from the bottom, Tana, Masar Shluchi Abal was inside Rezu B'chenek. That as far as the punishment for being Mazana, that the Pasuk says the difference between Nam Rasa and if she's already a Bulas Bal, she's already married. So if the marriage was consummated and then she was Mazana, then the death penalty is chenek, strangulation. If she was an Amur Rasa, only Arusa, not Nesua, so then the punishment is Skila, which is interesting that it's more severe, even though you might have thought that a Nesua is more of a marriage. But Arusa, there's a bigger punishment. Namur Rasa is Skila, stoning, and Bulas Boal, if she's already had relations with her husband, and then she was Mazana, so then the punishment is strangulation. So the question is, Chuppah also make her in the sewer, even if she didn't have relations, mamish, she wasn't mamish consummated, but she had moved into the husband's house. That also has enough to make it only chenek. And the question is about Masar Abal, Masar Av, this giving over, this delivery, this transferring of Rishuyas, that she didn't come into the husband's house, but she was already given over to the delegation of the husband. So is that enough to make it chenek? So there's a brisa, Tana, Masar Av l'shluchi Abal, Zivinsa Rezu b'chenek. That's enough to make her already down from skila to chenek. The fact that she was given over to the delegation of the husband. Really, there's no space over here. That's talking about Motzi Shemra, but it talks about Damar Ross over there, and it says that she was Mazana base over here, and the pasuk is going to come to say something. Once the father gave over the daughter to the delegation of the husband, so she's not anymore base over here. Basically, it's only when she's home. She's not home anymore because she left the father's house. She's on the way to the husband. And she was already given over to the husband's delegation. That's enough. That's not called anymore. There's no space over here. That the skila of Namirus is only when she's in the father's house or under the father's delegation still. But once they gave her over, that's enough to be considered married in a way that the only chenek. But the Gemara says maybe it's not a proof. Maybe this pasuk is necessary to teach you that she came into her husband's house. She came into the husband's house, even though she didn't have relations, it wasn't consummated. That's what the pasuk is coming to teach you. But if it's earlier than that, it's only the stage of Masira. Maybe that's not enough that she should be considered Bulas Baal to be considered chenek. Again, there are three stages. There's mamish consummation of the marriage, had relations. There's nechus al she came into his house, they didn't have relations yet, and then there's the Masira on the road that she was given over. So those are the three stages of Nisuin, going down. So if the marriage was consummated, mamish had relations, only she went down to chenek. If she's Mazana. If it was chuppah, also, and then the question is how about Masira? So the one word of pasuk, there's no space over here to say that even the lowest stage, even Masira is enough to make it chenek. And then was asking, maybe you need the pasuk to tell you the middle stage of chuppah. How do you know even a big chiddush that is the lower stage? It's us Masira. She was given over on the road. That's ready to be considered that it's going to be chenek if she's Mazana. Amarava, Amali Ami, chuppah behedi ksiva. Ami probably Rav Ami told me that there's another pasuk for that. Chuppah, you have another pasuk, so you don't need this pasuk. What's the pasuk over there? It talks about the din of skila on a nama rasa. So it says three things: nara, besula, marasa. Three conditions in order to be chayiv skila. She's a nara between 12 and 12 and a half, nara bogeres, and besula, virgin, and marasa that she's an arusa. And the drush is going to be nara below bogeres. Right, that's good. She has to be dafka nara before she has the maturity of a bogeres. Besula is coming to say below bula that she was not, didn't have relations, she's still a virgin, and marasa is coming to say lo nesua. And what kind of nesua is that? Does it mean she actually had relations? My nesua, ilay nesua, mamashana basula. Below Beula. We said already that there's a pasuk to say basula means that if she's not a virgin, there's no such din of skila. It must be that when it says arusa v'lo nesua, it's coming to say another chiddush. Even though she is still a virgin, there's still another condition that she should be not be nechas l'chuppah. Elav she nechas l'chuppah v'lo nivola. So that's chiddush it says already. So that it says that if she's already had relations with her husband, that is not going to be a chiyuv chenek anymore. That says basula. Now there's another pasuk that says murasa v'lo nesua. That means if she came into her husband's house, also she's already considered married in a way that if she's mizana now, it's only going to be chenek and not skila. So now, even though they had the relations, she came into his house. That's called chuppah. The word chuppah by us means the canopy. The chuppah really means coming into the husband's house. Nowadays, they make that the canopy is also going to be like his domain. Some places he rents it from the hall. Some places, or they just mean that is designated for him. But that's the chuppah doesn't really mean the canopy. The chuppah really means the husband's home. That's called chuppah. When she comes into the chuppah, means she comes into the husband's house. And now it's saying that even less that you know already, because it says this pasuk of Nara, Basula, Marasa. So the word Basula means that she had relations already down to Chenek. And now there's another word, Marasa, which means not on the Sua. That means already something less than having relations, which would mean coming to the husband's home. So now the pasuk that says there's no space of is extra pasuk comes to tell you even less than that, even Masira to the delegation of the husband is also enough to make her that now it's going to be Chenek. The Gemara, the rest of the Gemara, now that's the end of his memory. The Gemara is going to continue still, just a little mapping out. The Gemara is going to continue soon. The Gemara is going to bring proofs to this, and it's going to be true that the Masira, the giving over of the delegation to the husband, is enough to make it down to Chenek. But now, before we get there, there's about 12 lines or so, 15 lines, that according to Rashi, is mamish doesn't belong here, so to speak. And it's a question with the answer. It's not a kasha. It's going to be a she'ela, and it goes back to the Mishnah. So it's very strange what I was doing in the middle of the Gemara over here. We're still in the middle. We're still in the middle. But Rashi learns that this Gemara is a general question on the whole subject of Masira, and Tosfos learns it differently. Tosfos makes it a bit easier into the Gemara, but just for meanwhile, we'll just learn Rashi's pshat. We said that there's a Masira. There's something called that the father gave over his daughter to the husband's delegation, or to the husband's delegation, and now that's considered something of somewhat of a marriage, somewhat of a nesuin, even though it didn't get to the husband's home yet. And now the question is, what if on the way she turned back, not even out of divorce, not that anybody died, but she turned back. She said, whatever, I remember having an appointment or whatever, I'll come back tomorrow. Means the father had given her over to the husband, and they're on the way to go to his home. And then she said she didn't go home. She didn't go to the husband's home. She turned back. She'll come back tomorrow, whatever the case is, whatever you want to say. Means if she didn't turn back, so then we say that that's a stage of consummating the marriage. It's not mamish consummated, but it's on the way. It's a further step away from the father's home. But what if she turned back? Does that retract whatever was accomplished by this Masira? The Masira was that the father gave over to the husband, but then she went back home. Is that going to be retracting whatever stage of marriage that accomplished? Ema, so according to Rashi, it's not a kasha. It's just a question. It's a she'ela, not a kushya.
No, but the tshuva makes a big nafkamina.
Yes, but it's nothing to do with the Gemara. It's a question back on the Mishnah. It's nothing to do with the subject we're talking about, chenek and this. It happens to have relevance to this question, but it has relevance to the Mishnah. When we say Masira, could you undo the Masira?
Right.
So it's according to Rashi, it doesn't belong to here. Is it true, maybe, that when she goes back to her father's home, that she go back to being an Arusa again? She was an Arusa, and then she started going to the father gave over to the husband's delegation to the husband, and they started going on the way to his home. But then she retracted. She went back home. Does that retract any effect that Masira accomplished? Rabbi Shmuel already decided that, already brought the proof that is, I think it's what it's going to say. It's going to say, I think that is irretractable. The Tanna of Rabbi Shmuel. This is a pasuk in Parshas Samatos where it talks about neder, making a vow, and it says that a father could nullify the vow of a daughter, and the husband could nullify the vow of a wife. And now it says, but if she's a widow or a divorcee, so then if she makes a neder, there's nobody that's nullifying it, so it takes effect. The vow of a widow or of a divorcee, anything that she prohibits her on herself, is established because there's nobody to nullify it. And the Gemara is going to ask that it goes without saying. If it says that the father could nullify, your husband could nullify, very nice. If there's a father or if there's a husband, but if there's a man of Grusha, she's out of the domain of the husband, of the father and of the husband. So of course, her vow takes effect. What are you posting for? She's not in the domain of the father. She's not in the domain of the husband. So of course her neder takes effect. The more dashes it from the pasuk over there. It's extra pasuk. The fact that it says that almana and a grusha, a widow or a divorcee, that her neder takes effect, and you don't need it for the pasuk shot because, of course, if there's nobody to nullify it, surely it takes effect. It must be in a case where there was a masira, there was the giving over of the father to the delegation of the husband, or the delegation of the father to the delegation of the husband, but then it was terminated then, which means that the husband died or divorced her before they got to the husband's home. Do you consider that the father's house still? So it says the husband's house. Shlochar shows not the husband's house because there's no husband anymore. He divorced her or he died. But is it called the base of Aviyah? Does she go back to her father's house? Once she left the father's house, she doesn't go back. And therefore the father can't be mefer. The extra pasuk over there to tell you that this masira is irretractable. Once she went out of the father's domain by being given over to the husband's domain, even if she turned here, it talks about getting divorced or a widowed, but so too in our case that she turned back, she went back home again. Also, it would be irretractable. Even if the husband died, it's irretractable.
Assume that if the husband dies, she gets the Kesuvos and she gets Yerusha. As we learned yesterday, there's Yerusha. That's strong. Is that?
Yes, that seems to be what it's saying. Yesterday, the Gemara said that it's not talking about Shuma, but maybe it's talking about everything else. Risha is talking about, so that would be true. If she would, you're right. If she would die, so then surely that Yashin, that was the Mishnah said that's considered as given over to the husband. Here the question was that it was terminated because he died or because he divorced her. So maybe nothing happened that she goes back home. If she died, then there'd be no question. If she died, then you're right, the husband with Yashin. That's not the question. The question is if he died or if he divorced her or if she turned back home. Did these things retract whatever that stage of Masira accomplished? So the Gemara says in this drush you see that does not retract it. So once she was given over to the delegation of the husband or to the husband, even though they're still on the road, it's already sealed and it's irretractable. Just called in the sewer. We said that's not a mamish in the sewer because we said yesterday that Truma doesn't affect. But now we're saying that the Masira, but the middle of the sugya still. That's why it's strange. Rashi's trying is a bit strange that it put this 15 lines that doesn't belong right here. It's a question on the Mishnah. Does the Masira l'chuppah is retractable or not? So that's how Rashi learns. That just learns differently. But back to the sugya. What did the Gemara say? That it's not, what was the brisa? It started from the Tanah of Rabbi Shmuel until here, right? From Tanah of Rabbi Shmuel till here, that was a brisa. And back to the subject. We started the subject today from the time that the husband gave her over to the husband, the father to the husband. So if she's mazana, it's called chenek. The same way that if it was mamish consummated, had relations, then it goes down to chenek. If she's mazana from now on, and also there's a pasuk to say that even the chuppah coming into the husband's home is also enough that she shouldn't be considered maros anymore. She's in a sewer, even though there was not nivala. Now there's a third issue that even masira labal is enough to make that she go down to chenek, and he said so. And the Gemara brought a pasuk for that. Was no space of via, and now the Gemara is going to bring support to that. We had a little something interjection over here, a side point about if it's possible to retract the chuppah, the masira, which doesn't have something to do with our Gemara right now, according to Rashi. And now we go back to the subject. I have a proof from a Mishnah to this halacha that we just said that it goes down to chenek. If this says that this is the case about Namarosa, that's Chayiv Skila. So it says if someone has relations with a Namarosa, he's not Chayiv Skila, only on the following conditions: that she's a Nara, Basula, Marasa, and a fourth condition, Hiva Vesavia. It says 4 conditions, and the pasuk says 3 conditions. Bishlam Nara, Velo Bogeras, Basula, Velo Baula, Murasa, Velo Nasua. But what's basically coming to tell you? The 3 conditions mean that she should be a Nara, not if she's older than that, if she's a Bogeras already, she's 12 and a half, then it's not going to be a Skila. Fine. And it says Basula only if she's a virgin, but if she's a Bula, then it's not Skila. And it also says Marasa that she shouldn't be in a Sua, which means that she shouldn't have come into the house of the husband. Then even if she would still be a virgin, but there's not going to be skila, it's going to be chenek. But what does this mean? The brisa bevesavia, the muteimar, what's it coming to exclude? That even the less stage of nesuin which is not that didn't have relations, that she didn't come into the husband's house, she just was given over to the husband on the road, that's also enough to make that it shouldn't be skila. There are 4 conditions in order to be chayiv skila. It should be nara, besula, marasa, and still b'veisavia. That means that if she was out of the house of the father, she was given over to the husband's delegation, then also it's going to go down to chenek. And the Gemara ends off with one more proof. Is that good?
If she were in the house of her father, what would it be?
Skila. That's an nara, besula, marasa, viva veisavia. Then if she was mazana, so then she's chayiv skila. That's the din of skila. That's an amarasa. But here it says namarasa means nara, besula, marasa, and also b'veisavia. B'veisavia is coming to
the shluchim, it already goes down.
Right, then it's going to be chenek. And the one means one more proof. It says, I guess, a Mishnah of Brisa, Abal Leishasish, Chivin Shenichnas Alushus Abal Venesuin, Afal Pishal Nibala, Abal Leha Reza Bechenek. That's the words of the Brisa. That if someone has relations with a married woman, once she came into the domain of the husband for Nesuin, even though she was not Nibala, had no relations, but if someone has relations with her from now on, it's going to be chenek. And the word nichnas eloshus abal, the Gemara is b'dayik, these words don't mean chuppah. Nichnas eloshus abal doesn't mean chuppah coming into his house. It means even on the road. Even Masira is also included in the word nichnas eloshus abal. Taisvis is b'dayik from this, by the way, that in the Mishnah that we have the words on top of the previous some of the bays. It said if you go back to that words in the Mishnah, which started on the on the bottom line, so it says the only Rishus Habal and Nesuin. Taisha says these words are not good. I should say l'chuppah, because we see that our Gemara says that these words mean Mesir Labal. It doesn't mean chuppah, and the Gemara before the word made sense, so he changed the gears over there. Here the Gemara says that the word Nichas Rishus Habal does not mean chuppah. So what does it mean? Even Mesira, even if he was given over, she was given over to the shluchi to the Baal, to the shluchi Baal, that's enough that it should go down to chenek. As the Gemara is medayik now, nichlas elushus habal, but almost those words, nichlas elushus habal. It doesn't say that there was she came into the husband's house. She came into his domain. His domain means even on the road that the father gave her over to the husband. That's already called nichlas elushus habal, and it goes down to chenek.
What's the ba'alma?
The alma means only nichlas elushus habal alone. That it's just nichlas elushus habal means without being coming into his house. That's enough. Shami, no, that's enough. You see from here, that's enough to make it go down to chenek. So we had one sugya today. The sugya was that the whole point of Masira, it says in the Mishnah that besides coming into the chuppah, coming into the husband's home, she's also gets the status of a nesua even before she gets to his home, when she's given over to the delegation of the husband or to the husband, and to her husband, the father and the father's delegation, they leave, they stop. That's also kind of coming into the domain of the husband. Yesterday we said that's not enough for truma. Today we're saying, but it is enough that now it goes down to chenek. It's not anymore what the Torah says that there's a very severe death penalty for Nam or Rasa. That's only if she wasn't even given over to the domain of the husband before coming into his house. Domain maybe is the wrong word. I don't mean the house. The house means that's chuppah. She comes into the husband's domain, his home. That's chuppah. But this is before that. It's only on the road she was given over to the delegation of the husband before he got to his home. That's already also considered not anymore Nam or Rasa as far as chenek. It goes down. And we said everything else. Maybe truma might be the only exception so far. That truma, she can't eat truma until she actually comes into his home.
Why is Na'ara Marasa more chomer?
I don't know. Why is Namarasa more chomer than Bula's Baal? I would have thought us also that once that which should be more bigger of area. Once she had relations with her husband, and then she was Mazana, or she didn't have relations yet. I don't know. Why is that? That's a Torah law. Why is that so? Why does it go down from skila to chenek? Right. Right. That's the way it is. So what are we going to say? The fact that he ruined it for him, he ruined it for the husband. That she was a virgin and his first time, and now the fact that the husband would have relations with his wife as a virgin, he took that away. Maybe that's.
If she married us, but she's a
No, so then there's not. It says Nara Basula Hamarasa. It has to be a Basula. If she's not a Basula, right? If she's not a Basula, then it's chenek. It has to have all three. Now you're in 4 conditions in order to be skila, Nara, Basula, Marasa, which means she didn't come into the husband's house, and not even that she was not even given over to the husband's delegation. But that there is a point over there. I think that the Gemara talks about it in Sanhedrin, where it talks about which is more severe, chenek or skila, which was the more severe. So I think there talks about it, that the fact that Namarasa is skila and Abula's Baal is chenek. I think they have spoken about, but I don't remember. But that's a nice point to mention. New Mishnah. So we spoke about the obligation, the zechuyos of a father and his daughter, the monetary rights he has to his daughter's money, and when she's a nara, and also the husband, when the husband marries. We also spoke about the chiyuv of the husband to support his wife. We spoke about three chiyuvim, the mezonos and video, and he has to redeem her if she gets captured, and also that he has to bury her. That was the Mishnah before. And now the Mishnah continues to talk about the father's responsibility to support his children, which we mentioned it yesterday in passing, and everybody jumped up about the age 6, but we don't know that yet. Here the Mishnah says that a father is not obligated to feed his daughter. The Gemara is going to talk about a son. That's going to be the Gemara. But the Mishnah says that.
I don't know. Chayyid should start off from the car where Bechal is the Chayyid, his son, and then go.
So right, so it doesn't say about a son, and the Gemara is going to talk about it. It could be that it's not Chayyid for a son either. And we're talking about the daughter because that's the subject that we're talking about. That the husband's Chayyid, and it's talking about the women over here. But the Gemara is going to talk about what's the din of a son.
It could either mean even Bito. It could mean Bito and son.
Maybe.
So we don't know which.
We don't know. But first, the Mishnah says that's the Allah of the Mishnah that is not chayav to support his daughter, to feed his daughter. And now the rest of the Mishnah,
Like any age, right?
it doesn't say. Right. No, not chayav. No, to support his wife. Yes, he has to support his wife. That's the Mishnah before. That husband has to give food to his wife. Maybe the Raisa, maybe the Rabbanan. That's what we spoke about it yesterday. It was the Raisa Rabbanan. But here it says that a man is not obligated to support his daughter.
When a child is first born, it nurses from the mother. So if he's giving food to the mother, then the baby will have food automatically.
Okay.
And then after the baby's weaned, he wouldn't have to.
He probably would have to go to the Gabbai Tzedakah to say there's a kid here that needs food. But he probably would have to go to the Gabbai Tzedakah to say that there's a poor kid that doesn't needs money. So I say you have money. What does that have to do with me? So if there's a child here that needs food, so give me from the.
He's not the only one. Everybody in the town is going to do that.
Everyone, yeah, okay. So there'll be a tzedakah fund for all the poor babies that don't have any food.
But in the level of tzedakah, forget about
tzedakah, fine, tzedakah. He's a poor
No,
kid.
but he has
Okay, maybe if he has
a hungry little 3-year-old, sniffy,
yeah.
headachy, whatever, he's gonna not do tzedakah. He's gonna.
Okay, we're talking about the obligation. Talking about the chiyuv of mezonos. So it says here that the father is not obligated. We'll see the sugya. Everyone's just jumping. I understand.
Let's say it could have someone gave the kid money. If you had father that's left, the kid got money. His uncle gave me money. I'm not sure.
But the
Kid had
father,
now in the bank.
he has money, but the father doesn't have to give his own money. The father has an obligation to give his own. If he would have to give his own money, so then it doesn't make difference if the kid is a rich kid. The father has a chiyuv to support the kid, to give food to the kid. Yeah, like the same way as a wife. A wife has money, but the husband is obligated to support her. And now the rest of it is going to say how we know it. And it's interesting. It's going to say medrash, not from the Raisa. It's going to say medrash from a drabana. Means that the obligation, the whole point could be drabana.
Medrash means
Medrash,
something
the
that we learn now.
drash, right? Something that we got a drash, and it's going to be a drash from the ksuba. Very interesting. The Mishnah seems, the Pasuk Shana Mishnah seems to say that it does say in the ksuba that we don't have it in our ksuba. It means our ksuba doesn't say all the chiyuv ksuba. There's more. You have to learn Masechet Ksubas to say everything that's included in the obligations of a husband to a wife. Over there, it does talk about in the ksuba, not the one that we write, but it does say in the chiyuv ksuba that a man is obligated to support his daughters. It does say, and the medrash, the drash that the Mishnah is going to say is to say that that's only talking about after he dies. That's a preview of what the Mishnah is going to say. Even though it says in the Ksuba that a man obligates himself to support his daughters, that only means after he dies. It means after he dies, and there's a Yerusha, there's an inheritance that is bequeathing to his children, but it goes to the sons, and the daughters don't get any of the Yerusha. But he obligates to support them from his estate, even though they don't get inheritance. The sons inherit, but they have to first give mazonos to the daughters, their sisters, the daughters that are not getting Yerusha. They do have a right to get supported from the estate, and that it says in the Ksuba. And the Mishnah seems to be wondering that maybe those words in the Ksuba don't just talk about after death. Maybe it even means in the lifetime. Maybe even in a person's lifetime when he says to his wife, "I'm going to support the daughters that I have from you." That's the lashon of the Ksuba. Maybe it means even in a lifetime, and that would be against the Mishnah's quote that says a father's not chayiv. So Elazar ben Azai is going to dash from the Ksuba that the Ksuba doesn't say that. The Ksuba doesn't say I'm going to support the daughters in my lifetime. It says I'm going to support them after my death. So it doesn't contradict the Mishnah's rule that says a father's not chayiv to support his daughters. That means in his lifetime. But after death, from the Yerusha money, it goes from the Yerusha money to go to support the daughters.
Okay.
I just gave an introduction to what the Mishnah is going to say now. The following drasha, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said to the Chachamim in Camp Yavne. Camp Yavne is one of the places where the Chachamim went to after the Chorban. They went to Yavne. Camp Yavne is the yeshiva, and Yavne is called Camp Yavne by Sheni. So the Camp Yavne, Rashi someplace else the Gemara says it's called the Kerem because I don't know, it sounds
they had rows. They had
rows of Talmidim. So I'm not sure if that's the reason, if that's the partial reason.
Or the laws were
That means the Talmidim was sat in rows, it seems over there, but must be a different reason also. But anyway, in Camp Yavne, that's the place where the Sanhedrin went to after the Korban, and it says, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah over there said it's Russia. He said, it says in the Ksuba, Abanim Yeshu, Abanim Shizonu. There are two things that it says in the Ksuba. One is
in the Ksuba.
In the Ksuba.
Not a pasuk.
Right. That's the point. That it's a medrash, but it's not a medrash of Apsukim. It's a medrash of the Ksuba. That the takanas that the Chachamim said, they said two takanas, Banim Yeshu and Banim Zizonu. It doesn't say those words exactly. Rashi brings the whole document to tell you the statement of what does it mean Banim Yeshu. And it's going to say it here in Rashi. If you look in Rashi here, it tells you here it is. I'm trying to highlight it. Where does it go? Here's the highlighting. Then in Dichrin, the Havan Lachaminoi.
Which Rashi is this?
This is Rashi. Abanim Yeshu, Abanim Zizonu. So it says Rashi brings a mission later on, Dafnun Beis, that says the male sons, within different names, Banim Schorim, that are going to be to you from me, means the sons that we give birth to, they are going to inherit your ksuba besides the portion that they have with their brothers. Which means, when does a woman get ksuba? If the husband dies in her lifetime, if he divorces her or he dies in his lifetime, she gets the ksuba. What if she dies first? Then there is no ksuba. But there's a clause in the ksuba that eventually when he dies, she died first, and then he died. So the Yorshim should divide the whole Yerusha. But there's a clause in the ksuba. There's a clause.
That whole thing. I'm sorry. That whole thing is the Tirsa.
This is what's written in the ksuba. It doesn't say it in our ksuba, but this is a Mishnah that says even if you don't write it, it's also obligated. This is the Tanai ksuba. These are the conditions of ksuba, and it says the male sons that you have from me, that are born to you from me, they are going to inherit the money of your ksuba besides the portion that they have with their brothers. That means that if he has a couple of wives, if he only has one wife, all the children are the same, so there's no difference. They inherit everything. But if there are different wives, so each wife gets that her Yarshim, her inheritors, should inherit the ksuba from the father. It means, again, the woman died before the husband, so she doesn't get any ksuba. She gets ksuba only if he dies in her lifetime. Then she gets ksuba, or he divorces her, then she gets ksuba. But she died first. So there's no ksuba, but eventually he dies, and his money goes to the Yorshim. And they made a clause that the children of each wife gets the money of the ksuba before dividing the whole Yerusha. Does that make sense? Let's say there were two wives, and one got a bigger ksuba than the other.
Yeah.
When the husband dies, the money is of each ksuba that the wife would have gotten if he would have died first, but he didn't die first. She died first. But that money, which was designated for the woman's ksuba, goes to her children. Of course, it's his Yarshim also. But you don't divide Yerusha equally. First, you give out the ksuba of each wife to the children, and that might be different prices. And then you take the rest of the Yerusha and divide it equally. That's what it says in the ksuba. That's called an indifferent. That's called the Yerusha of the sons. That they get the inheritance of the ksuba of their money from when the father dies. Good?
No, I didn't put it. They get the ksuba first.
Right. But the ksuba, really there's no ksuba because she died before her husband. So he's not tied to her ksuba.
Oh, so there's no ksuba.
There's no ksuba, but there is a clause that that money which was designated for ksuba, that amount of money which would have gone to the woman if he would have died first, or if he would have divorced her. Now, when it comes time when the husband dies, and the Yerusha is going to his Yarshim, so his Yarshim first each one takes the ksuba of their money, the ksuba of their mother.
Takes the, for their.
As a Yerusha. No, not Mazon, it's Yerusha. They're rationing, but they don't just ration everything equally. Each
First,
one
first they take from the ksuba, and then whatever else
is
he
less
has.
less. Then they're going to divide equally. But
Divide.
first, each one of the children first get the ksuba of their money, of their mother.
What's
The mother would like that. Her ksuba should go to her children.
Oh, I see.
not
He's
to
a
the
father,
husband.
and everything that he has, he divides against all the children.
Right. And they're different women, and each one has different ksuba.
I see.
And
does
and there are five children
there's
from
two Bechor,
five
right?
children from
Two
another
Bechors.
the Bechor goes with the father.
Uh-huh. The Bechor only goes by the father.
Let's not get there. But one woman has five children, one woman has one child. She doesn't want that her ksuba money should be divided amongst all the six children.
Into
She wants her child should get her ksuba money.
Yeah.
So that is true. That's what happens. And that's called benin dichrin. Then there's another thing,
Benin
that's
dichrin.
benin dichrin, the male sons. Then there's also the next line. If you look at the next Rashi, then there's going to be another clause in the ksuba, benan nukvan.
Binyan different, I see.
The next one tells about the nusach of the ksuba by the daughters. It says benan nukvan, which means the female daughters that are going to be born to you from me. They should sit in my house and be supported from my estate until they become mature, or until they be taken by men, until they get married. So that means that in the ksuba, the husband is obligating himself that he should support his daughters. So if you read those words, it might sound like he has to support his daughters. He supports his daughters, even in his lifetime. You want to make it a bit colder? Everybody should enjoy it better. It seems to be too hot. It's too
It's not too hot, but I'm not too hot.
okay, but it seems to
Some
be too
people
hot.
some people are too hot. They're too
Okay.
comfortable. Maybe
So
they should put
that's what the
belts on
Mishnah
their
says.
shirt.
That's what the Mishnah says, that he made a drasha. That's so it's only after the father dies. But there is no obligation for the father to support his daughters in his lifetime. That was the drasha of Elazar ben Azariah. Don't think that the daughters get supported because of the ksuba. It doesn't say that over there. The Gemara continues. How about the sons? Since the Mishnah says that he's not chayiv to support his sons, his daughters, we can deduce. It sounds like that he is obligated to support his sons. One might say that. Or else he should have said. And another diak, the Gemara thinks that it has a diak in the Mishnah, since it says it's not obligated, but there would be a mitzvah. So two things the Gemara deduces from our Mishnah. One is that he is obligated to support his sons, and the other one is that it's a mitzvah, not an obligation, but it's a good thing. It's a mitzvah. I don't know exactly how to define a mitzvah. Maybe we don't force him, but it's not an obligation to support his daughters, but it is a mitzvah. And now the Gemara says that we have a brayso that has three opinions, Rav Meir, Rav Yehuda, and Rav Yochanan ben Broka, and the Gemara seems to ask that our Mishnah, after we make this deduction, after we made this diuk, so it doesn't fit with anybody. My name is Nisan, Lord Meir, Lord Yehuda, Lord Yochanan ben Broka. It's going to bring a brayso, and it's going to say that doesn't fit with anybody. The Tanya, mitzvah wasn't as abonis, kavachom olabonim. The Aski B'Torah, that the Gemara sticks in, Divrei Rav Meir, that there is a mitzvah to support, to feed one's daughters. And Kal V'chomer, he should support his sons because the fact that they learn Torah, so there's more reason that they should be supported. That's what Rameir says. So the Gemara is going to say, he says it's a mitzvah. Our Mishnah doesn't say it's a mitzvah. Mitzvah d'leka. It says I'm sorry. It says there is a mitzvah, but it says it's a mitzvah to support sons. That's the problem. That by
You're saying that you should support the daughters, no, more so the sons.
right, but it doesn't say you have to. It says it's a mitzvah, and that's against our mission, which says that he's chayiv to support the diak is chayiv to support his sons. Rabbi Yehuda Omer mitzvah lazan es abanim kal v'cham labanos mishum zilus. He says the opposite, that daughters is more reasonable that he should have to support because there's a zilusa, there's a degradation that the daughters shouldn't have food. The sons they can go to beg, but the daughters to beg is going to be more degrading.
But so far, neither of them said it was a mitzvah.
Both of them said it's a
neither
mitzvah, right?
obligation.
Right. No one said it's an obligation. That's the Gemara's kasha. That neither one said it's an obligation. That's the mitzvah. And our Mishnah's diak said that only daughters not, but maybe his sons is just chayiv. But he said both of them said the same thing, that the mice is it's a mitzvah to support the sons and the daughters. One started with the sons, kal v'chomer for the daughter. One said the daughter, kal v'chomer for the son. The third sheet of Omer, okay, this everyone agrees that after he dies, he has to support him. That's the Kesuvos, that it says he has to support after the death. That we know. Both the sons and the daughters are not supported in the father's lifetime, and he holds not even a mitzvah. Rabbi Yehuda said it's a mitzvah for both sons and daughters, and Rabbi Yochanan said it's not a mitzvah even, not the son, not the daughter. So far, nobody distinguishes between a son and a daughter. He says the according to Rabbi Yehuda Meir, both of them are a mitzvah to support, not a chova. And Rabbi Yochanan says it's not even a mitzvah. And that's how the Gemara ends off the kasha that the Mishnah doesn't fit on anybody. Iyab Meir, Ha'am Abana mitzvah. Iyab Yehuda, Ha'am Abana mitzvah. Iyab Yochanan Broka, Afilu mitzvah nami leka. What's
I
the?
don't understand. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, I thought he said it's an obligation.
Oh no, only after he dies. That can put in parentheses.
I see, only after he dies, so that there's no
But
obligation.
but
It's
not even a mitzvah.
Okay.
The Chayiv one Eilu is not even a mitzvah. That's the end of the brisa. And now the Gemara is ending off. Mani Maslisin. If so, who's our Mishnah? According to our mayor, the sons is a mitzvah. Our Mishnah seemed to be mashma that the sons is an obligation, not only a mitzvah. And I've viewed also the same thing. He says Banim is a mitzvah. The question, the word nami here seems to question about the word nami. But he says that he also says that the sons are a mitzvah. And our Mishnah says that it's a chova. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's not even a mitzvah. I feel the mitzvah nami leka. And the Gemara made a diuk in our Mishnah that the sons is an obligation. And the Gemara is going to say that the Gemara is going to answer that the diukim are not so strong. Well, we started off in the beginning. This blue over here is not such a strong thing. And the Gemara is going to say you can fit it with everybody. Iboy same Rabbi Meir, Iboy same Rabbi Yehuda, Iboy same Rabbi Yochanan Broka. I can fit our Mishnah with any one of the three opinions. Again, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, both of them hold that it's a mitzvah to support both the sons and the daughters. Machlok is over there, which one was more svara, which one was a kal v'chomer, which one was more, which one was less. And Rabbi Yochanan Broka said it's not even a mitzvah. So the Gemara says our Mishnah can fit with anybody. You could say Iboy same Rabbi Meir. You could say our Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. Vachi kama ha'av ein l'chayv b'mazonos bita v'odin lebno. Even though it says daughter only, it doesn't only mean a daughter. But don't say what I said before that a son would be chayiv. No, v'odin lebno also is not chayiv. Ha mitzvah b'bita v'ika kal v'chomer lebanim. But there is a mitzvah for both of them, for a daughter and kal v'chomer to a son. So why does it talk about a son? If the son is the same thing as the daughter, so why does the Mishnah only talk about a daughter? Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't get it. How could it be Rabbi Meir?
Because we're going to say that don't make the deal that since it says daughter, it means the son is different. Don't make that deal.
But he used the word mitzvah.
Yes, we're not changing our we're changing our Mishnah. Which it was saying that this diak is this what we said, that's a mistake. This diak is not so strong. To say that since it says about a daughter, so a son is obligated, don't say that. That diak is not such a strong diak. We could explain the diak. We could explain. The whole kasha was, why does it say daughter? Must be that a son is chayiv. That would change. We're not changing our Meir. We're changing the Mishnah. All three times we're going to change the Mishnah. We're not going to change the Brisa. The Brisa says the way it says. Three opinions. But the Mishnah we could juggle with and say that the Mishnah doesn't mean to say dafka daughter is not chayiv, but a son is chayiv. That a son is also not chayiv. Who didn't live is also not chayiv. And the B'diak said that it is a mitzvah for the daughter, yes, and kal v'chomer to the sons because the son's learning Torah. So why does it talk about a daughter? If the halach applies both to a son and to a daughter the same, so why does it talk about only a daughter? You might think that a daughter, which according to Meir is less than a son, you might think that is not even a mitzvah. So that's why he wanted to say that a daughter is no chova, but do make the deal that there is a mitzvah. Even the daughter that's not learning Torah, she can go work, and it's not a loss as much as it will be if the son would have to work and he wouldn't be able to learn Torah. No, there's even the daughters also there's a mitzvah. So we reconciled our Mishnah with Rav Meir that it's a mitzvah to support both the son and the daughter, but there's no chova for either one, not for the son or the daughter. Even by saying Rabbi Yehuda, if you want to, I can explain the Mishnah also according to Rabbi Yehuda. Again, we're not going to change the Brisa, we're going to change the Mishnah. Before we thought that he's not chayiv to support his daughter, but what did we say before? But to the son he is chayiv. But now it says no. Coach can't live no that he's not chayiv. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, as far as the opposite, the Rabbi Yehuda holds that the daughter is more important to support because it shouldn't be degrading to her. So if it says in the Mishnah that he's not obligated to support his daughter, then kal v'chomer is not obligated to support his son. And is it a mitzvah? Yes, it is a mitzvah. A mitzvah, but no ika and kavachama lebanos, because it shouldn't be degrading to them. So again, it's talking about this daughter, but it means the son also. So why does it just say the daughter? Why didn't tell me bito? That was the whole deal. It says bito, smash, that the son will be chayiv. That even the daughter, which is more reason to support her because it shouldn't be degrading to her, but still there's not a obligation, it's only a mitzvah. So we reconcile the Mishnah with the Yehuda also. And the third opinion, we also fit into the Mishnah. Iboy saying that says that there's no mitzvah even, and we made all this diyukim that the son is chayiv and the daughter is a mitzvah. No, also all the diyukim are not strong. That's what the Mishnah says. What didn't the know? What didn't the feel mitzvah nami leka? Don't make all these diyukim. All the diyukim are wrong.
And there's no mitzvah either.
There's no mitzvah either for the daughter and for nobody. I did the bonus la'acha misa savi and chova. Why does it say it's not a chova? It could have said it's not even a mitzvah because after death it is a chova. So it says here it's not a chova. Since after death the father does have an obligation to support his daughters, like it says in the Kesuvos, the nukva I'm going to support. So he's obligated after death. So that's why he says that during his lifetime he's not obligated. But the truth is not even a mitzvah. So yes, ID means before. ID means since it's talking about that, so that's why it continues talking about the same subject. Since we were talking about the chova after contrasting, since we're saying that after death he is chayiv, so it's contrasting and saying in his lifetime not chayiv. But the truth is not even a mitzvah either. The subject with contrasting is the obligation of, like it says in the Kesuvos, that he's obligated to support his daughters after his death. So now it says in his lifetime he's not obligated. But the truth is it's not even a mitzvah. So we didn't change the brisa. We just explained the Mishnah all three ways. And it comes out to Machlokes of Meir, of Yehuda, and of Yochanan ben Broka. But Meir and Yehuda, both of them say that it's not an obligation. There's no different sons and daughters; they're all the same. According to Meir and Yehuda, both of them is a mitzvah, but not a chova to support them. According to Yochanan ben Broka, it's not even a mitzvah. Next Gemara. Amar Abila, Amar Ashlokish, Mishum Yehuda ben Chanina. Usha eskinu sheyhei adam zan is one of Espinosa b'kshenktanim. In Usha was a city, and that was after the Churban. They went to Yavne. After Yavne, they went to Usha. They were traveling from place to place. The Sanhedrin, in different times, they had to move to different places. They made it Takanas Usha. We're going to have in our Gemara about 5 different Takanas they made in Usha. This is the main one that came in Farsugi. The rest of them are going to be a tangent. We're going to cruise of all the Takanas Usha. But the first one it says here is that they made a Takana over there that a man should support his sons and daughters when they're young. And even though really not obligated, not the rice and not the rabbanan, but a nusha they made a takan that a person should support his children as long as they're young. It doesn't mean less than 6. It means as long as they're ketanim, as long as they're not of age. Once they're 13, 12, then they can get their own parnasa. But when they're young, they made a takana in Usha, a later takana that a man should support his children.
So the halacha was that there is no obligation.
That's what it says. And now even this Gemara, the Gemara is also going to say that we don't pass like this. That we pass like this, that Rav Ila said that a nusha it's such a takana that now they get a new takana that a person doesn't have to support his children. Tashma. The Gemara is bringing a few stories of Amaram that there were such people that didn't want to support their children and they were rebuked, but they weren't forced. So it seems Rashi learns that we don't hold like this. We don't hold that this takana that a person has to. If they made a takana, then a person would have to. They would force him. But we don't pass him like that. If such a case would come to Rav Yehuda, Amalahu, he would tell them like this. Let's just highlight it. He would say, Yarod Yolda Babde Mosa Shadia. The jackal gives birth. Yarod is a jackal.
A jackal.
That's what Rashi says. He brings a targum that the word tan means jackal. A jackal gives birth and throws it on the people of the city. That means that a jackal seems to be a cruel animal.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it does with its children, but the point is that you're acting like a jackal, that you gave birth and you're cruel and you're giving the obligation to the people to support that child.
How far does it go?
What's B'nai? It's Abnei. On Baal Masa is a city. B'nai Masa is the people of the city. B'nai Yair Shadia. They throws that Tan Yoledes the Zorekes B'nai Yair, which means he would give him Musa and he would scream at him, "What are you? You're like a jackal." But he didn't force him. That's Rashi says is a proof that we don't pass him. That we don't pass like the kind of susha that they don't obligate him to support his children. If you have a also like a major of Chizda Amalahu Kafule.
means serpent.
So if it's a tanin. We said that a tan is a jackal, and the plural of that is tanim, and a tanin is the singular of a serpent, and the plural of that is taninim.
Tanin.
Right. Right. There's a tan. Rashi brings down. Rashi himself says tanin. Maybe it's, but here Rashi brings down the pasuk in Yirmiyah. Ma'on tanin. Rashi says that Yarod before that. No. So really, Rashi should say tan, not tanin. Tan. Ma'on tanim. Tagabina mador Yarodin. Yarodin is the plural of tanim. So singular is Yarod and tan. The problem is that Rashi says tanin. He really should say tan.
Tanin is spelled the same way for both, right?
I don't think so. Tanin with a nun at the end is a
nun yud nun.
Taf nun yud nun is a serpent.
The same way you spell.
I don't think so. It's
Two jackals is how do you spell it?
With a mem at the end.
Oh, with a mem, not a nun.
A tan is one. The plural is going to be tanim. Like Rashi means, they said ma'on tanim. Here it is, ma'on tanim. Here's the pasuk. Ma'on tanim. That means that a lair,
Ma'on tanim.
like the dwelling of tanim. That's plural for jackals. And like it says, Modor Yarodin. A living place for the Yarodin. A singular is Yarod. So a singular of tan is a tan. The tan is one. Okay, that's the side point. Rashi does say tanin, but I think it should be tan. I don't know if there's a gear change. But anyway, that was what he would scream at him. You're like a jackal. Yarod the older Abnei Moshe Shadia.
Okay. I have. Okay.
What do you have?
My Rashi has hatanin.
Right. So I have a question. It should say tan rating.
Uh-huh.
I didn't change the gear. I didn't check the gear source. So that was a proof that we don't possibly like this obligation. They're not obligated. But we scream at them. What are you, a jackal? When such a story comes to me, would say that make a platform. Asisa is like a mortar, some kind of a clear, big clear. They would say like turn it upside down, like a garbage can. We would say take a garbage can, turn it upside down, and stand like a platform. Stand up in public, and he should say that a raven wants its children, but this man doesn't want children. Doesn't want his children. So that means to say, the more saying that even a raven takes care of its young, and this man doesn't take care of his young. Rashi has two pshatim. If the man himself, we tell the man himself to get up and announce about himself, or it means that the Gabbai gets up and announces in public about this man that he doesn't want to support his children. It means we shame him and ridicule him, but we don't force him.
I'm sorry, Sabura.
Tzibur is a tzibur. Kafule Yasisa, turn over a mortar in the public and let him get up and say that a orba boy b'nei, a raven wants its children, but this man, who got below boy b'nei, he doesn't want his children. He wants the kasha. Is that true that a raven takes care of its children? Orba boy b'nei, does the raven takes care of its children? That Hashem listens to the young ravens that are calling out for food. And the Gemara understands that it means that the young ravens are not being taken care of their needs by their mother. And Hashem makes a miracle that they should have food. But you see that the raven doesn't take care of its young. Depends, white or black. Rashi learns that it's the same raven. That's when it's young, it's white, and then when it gets big, it gets black. And when they're young, the mother doesn't recognize it as being its kind, and therefore doesn't support it until it gets black. Rashi says that
which one's white?
The Hibri is white, Ochmi is black. And Taisa says there's two different species, two different kinds of ravens. Some are cruel to their young and some are not.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a side point. The point was to say that we shame the person who doesn't want to support his children and we announce about him, Orva boy b'nei, Vahuga lo boy b'nei. And the next thing is, such a case that a person didn't want to support his sons, do you want them to be supported from tzedakah? That means that we stress to him that you know what you're doing. You're taking tzedakah money for your children. You're forcing the tzibur to support him from tzedakah. We emphasize it to him that he should be shamed. But that's the end of the Gemara. It seems to say that all three stories point that we don't hold like Usha that says that they made a takana that he should support his sons. He's not obligated. At most, we're going to shame him and ridicule him, but we're not going to force him.
So is it a means chasidus or what is it?
It's surely a good thing. We're going to see that it's surely a good thing. Like the Gemara says, you're not even like you're not a mensch, not even an animal. You're not even like a raven. You're not even like a jackal.
Less than a means chasidus.
So we would think that it's surely a mensch, but we're not going to force him. We don't force a person to be a mensch. That's what it sounds like.
Okay.
But he has to. If it's surely, I think Hashem would have complaint against him. You're not like you're not even using the human meter of compassion on your own children. Like, what is this? The case probably would be that he doesn't have money. He doesn't have money, and he wants the seabird to take care of them. He wants the public funds to take care. All this is talking about that he's not rich. Amid means rich.
So, excuse me, just a minute. So, like when people say I have 9 children, and they're getting married or whatever, I don't know.
And I'd have no money.
And I have no money. They should say,
I have no money.
support me so that I can support them.
That's a little different because he's marrying them off. That's the question. If he's
Okay, not
obligated,
marrying them off.
he can't
I
marry
have
them
no
off.
money. They have nothing to eat.
Nothing to eat.
It makes
So-
it sound like I should support them.
Right, he's
Right,
right. He's
which
right
is
because
wrong, right?
why? First of
They're
all,
being like a raven. I
no,
should
no,
support
he's-
him so he can support them.
no. So here the Gemara is saying this is an example of something that he's not obligated. The Gemara's coming out. He's not obligated. He has no obligation. So he's doing a favor, so to speak. He's doing me to be the Gabbai Stucker to raise money for these kids who have no who have no support. He doesn't have an obligation. I'd like not to be. I don't.
He has
I'm
no
not a raven
obligation, but the last
No, no,
one said, "But you're going to take it from tzedakah."
because you have money.
Okay.
But he has no money. So what should he do? He says, I have no money. If you talk about a person who tries and is working, and he has
Like
kids.
Israel
and-
Raven
and-
said that's what he could yell back at me.
no, he's saying like I'm trying. It's not like I'm trying. I'm not talking about. I don't know each person. I don't know. But if a person comes and says, I worked from 6 a.m. until 12 at night, and I can't support these kids, so they're poor. What should I do? I'm working day and night. What can I do? So can you please help support these kids? Like, I'm doing the best I could. The Gemara is talking about, like he says, that we could get money out of him. So we ridicule him and shame him for not
Okay.
doing what he could.
Okay.
This thing that we only ridicule him and shame him, but we don't force him, is only if he's not rich. But if he's rich, then we force him against his will. And the Gemara brings something about forcing a person to give tzedakah if he could afford it. This case of Nas Barami doesn't seem to do with children, but he was rich and
Sorry, the word amid is.
rich, wealthy. Because you
That's
see,
what we use for milk. It's,
no, that's with an iron probably,
oh yeah.
that it stands.
And what is this amid?
Rich,
Rich.
wealthy.
I never seen it. Okay.
It's Aramaic.
It's Aramaic. Okay. Good.
I think they do use it nowadays in Hebrew. They took it as a Hebrew word.
Okay.
I think they use it in Hebrew. But we force him, as we found that Rabbi forced of Nassim Arami, and he took out of him 400 zuz for tzedakah. There, it wasn't talking about Nassim Arami, wasn't talking about his children or anything, but Rabbi evaluated that he should give more tzedakah than he's giving. And he forced him to give tzedakah. So you see that someone could afford, we force him to give tzedakah. So too, this person who has money, we will force him to give his children like tzedakah.
They forced him to give it to tzedakah. Who forced him?
Rava forced of Nassim Arami 400 zuz to tzedakah. And so too, the Gemara is learning out that if it's a father that doesn't want to support his children, but he is rich, so we will force him to support his children. Maybe it's called tzedakah. We'll force him to give tzedakah to his children.
So is this case where Nassim Bar Ami probably was giving Meiser, and he was so rich he should have given more.
Something like that.
He should have given a chumash or something,
Maybe.
and they forced him to give.
Right. I want to see that
But it
such
has
thing as
nothing
forcing
necessarily to do with
children.
his
Right. And but the Gemara is learning out from there that so too will force somebody who's rich to support his children. Maybe from his money should have been giving it tzedakah. It's not worse than tzedakah. So if we could force somebody to give tzedakah, we'll force somebody, this rich man, to give support
Use it
to
for
his
your
children.
Okay.
The rest of the Gemara now is going on a tangent. Since we mentioned takana susha over here, this first thing was all usha. Avila said that Anusha made such a takana, so that was our subject. Now we're going on a cruise. Yes, please.
Where was Usha? Oh, but Usha is the city.
Right.
Yeah.
And so too, we're gonna have now again the Usha Skino coming up, another one coming up. They're gonna be 5 altogether.
see.
And we're going on a cruise now. Yes, please.
Just a question that after the Brahmi, the Apik thing,
He extracted from him.
yeah, it's like forced somebody. Is there a better Russian to say instead of Apik extracted?
How would you say it?
He forced him, yeah, Vanasa.
Okay. He extracted,
But you know,
took
it's
from him.
like Push hard enough, squeeze it out.
Yeah, that's okay. I guess that's the idea.
Is
So-
Usha in Eretz Israel?
Which is in Eretz Yisrael, and like Abusa, Pinchas Abramus, he was telling us about it a little bit.
Where in
Past,
Galileo?
I think so, and the past 2 years, he said they did excavations, and they found a lot about it. It's a small, it was a pretty small city. I think so, but I can get more information. They have now excavations of it. A person wrote away all of his estate to his children in his lifetime. They do that nowadays sometimes because of tax purposes. That they don't want it to be taxable after they inherit, whatever. So there's a way of making an estate, and they don't give it knowledge to the children, but they make an estate and it's like and a corporation. And people do this nowadays that they write away their money, but not
What does this mean?
a person who wrote away all of his estate to his children in his lifetime, and now he needs money, and his children are not. Who his children is only him. He and his
From
wife.
his children. Like,
Right,
it's
that
not
means that
mine anymore.
Right,
I
even though it's
gave
not his, and the children say we don't want to support you. It's I have to understand. The father just gave away all the chassan to his children, and then the father says, "But I need money to live on." So they say, "It's tzedakah," So they made a takana that the husband and wife have a right to get supported from the money that they gave to the children.
Oh, the takana is.
Hakos
The
is from the
takana
chas of
is that
Labana.
the children, he can do it, but that the children have to support it.
Of course, he could do it. He could give his money to his children, but even though Minadin, they don't have to support him. No,
The takana is that
they must be supported. The children, we force the children to support the parents from the money that they got from the parents. Maskef Rab Zera, B'tem Rab Shmuel Bar Nachmani, has a kasha. Is that a chiddush? Gedolim Mizu Amru. They said even a bigger chiddush than that. Amanasan is only Menachasav. His widow is a person's widow is supported from his estate. So is it a chiddush? Who v'ishto miboya? If the halach is that a person's widow is supported from his estate after he dies, so is it a chiddush that he and his wife should be supported from in his lifetime from his own estate? I think more is going to bring the source of this, that a widow is supported from his estate. We know that's the halach of a wife. A wife has the right to be supported from the estate even after the husband dies. That's part of the ksuba. The shalach Ravin bigarte, Ravin sent in his letter, I guess he went to Eretz Yisrael as he used to come back and forth, and Ravin sent a letter back to Babel. Misha Meis V'niach Almana Ubas, someone who died, and he left over a widow and a daughter. It seems the daughter is the only, no son. So the daughter is going to yarshin, the daughter is going to inherit. But there's a widow also. The widow is supported from his estate, even though the daughter yarshins, but first Almana gets support. How about if the daughter that married, Nisei Abbas, and now the husband, the new husband over here, the son-in-law, so he's the one who now is getting the money, getting the estate. But still, still the widow still gets supported, even though there's a son-in-law involved. How about if the daughter died even? Mesa Abbas, she got married and she died, and now the whole Yerusha belongs to the husband. Still,
Who's not even a son of the original.
right? Such a story happened by me. That the widow still gets supported. The widow gets supported from the estate, even if there's a daughter that yarshins, even if she gets married, even if she dies. So, so is there any chiddush that the man and his wife should get supported in his lifetime? If his almana gets supported after he dies from his estate, then kal v'chomer, he and his wife should get supported in his lifetime. But the Gemara says it's not a kal v'chomer. Over there that he died, there's nobody to work anymore. The man died, so his wife has nobody to work for her. So then he gets supported. She gets supported from his estate. What?
Who doesn't have the Torah?
There's nobody there to work. Like the Torah, there's nobody there around to be able to work because the husband died. The case of the almana, the case of the widow means the husband died, so she gets supported from his estate because there's nobody to give her support. But over here, the guy is still able-bodied. He gave his nechasim to his child, but he can still work. Let the man who gave away his nechasim to his children, he might think that he can still work, so let him work. So it says no, that even though he gave a present to his children, he has a right to take whatever he needs from his owners for him and his wife. Kamash Malan, that he does have a right. It's a chiddush. We won't be able to learn out from almana. It is a chiddush, but we learn out this was this takan and usha that they do get supported from the estate that they gave away. Do we pass like that? Do we pass like this takan susha? Tashma, the Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Yonasan, Rabbi Kami. I'll bring you a raya if they be passing like it or not. because Rabbi Chanina Rabbi Yonasan was standing, or in the street, whatever. Asahu Gavra, Gochem V'Nashke Rabbi Yonasan HaKareh. A person came and he bent down and he kissed Rabbi Yonasan on the foot. He bent down to kiss Rabbi Yonasan on his feet. So Rabbi Chanina, who was standing there, was very impressed. Like he must very much respect you. He bent down to kiss you on the feet. Amalei, Rabbi Chanina, my high, what is this? He's kissing you on the foot. Amalei, he has a lot of gratitude to me. Kosev l'chasav l'banavu, he had given away all of his estate to his children, and they didn't want to support him. V'asisinu l'zane, and I forced the children to support him, and that's why he's very grateful.
I forced them.
Right. So Rashi says asisinu. Rashi says means that I forced. Tosfos says that it means I did. That Rashi says it doesn't. It doesn't. The one's going to say in a second that the fact he was so grateful means that he did it Shlomo Nadin. I forced them.
Meaning the children.
I forced the children to support, and that's why he's so grateful. And the Gemara says, if the Dayan did what is the law, you don't have to be so grateful. If the judge would have done what's the din, then no reason to be so grateful. He did whatever the law is. You go to the Dayan and you paskin that that's the halacha, so there's no gratitude. You don't kiss his foot because of that. If that's the halacha, it's not the halacha. So then he had to force him. And Tosfos says forcing means with words. Tosfos says that the point was that he forced him with words, not that he actually hit him. And that's the Gemara's deal, that he should be hitting him if he's not doing the law. So you take a stick and the Dayan hits him. But he didn't do that. He just was encouraging him.
If it's the din, why did he force him? That's the question.
Tosfos learns asiyinu boy that he should have taken a stick. Why does he? What's the word? Rebuking him and with words. Tosfos learns it means that he should have taken a stick if that would be the law. So you see, it's not the law. Or you can learn that the diak is that if it's the law, then he shouldn't have to be so grateful. Rashi says, because
situation called for it.
Right, it's called like with Rashi calls it Lefnim Mishur Sadim, that it went beyond the letter of the law. Like he made an exception and he forced him. But if it would be the din, of course he has to do the truth. It wouldn't be such a gratitude. Rashi, I don't see how Rashi fits into the word so much. Tosfos says that the word asiyinu means with words, and the diak is that the immin adin haya ma haya lo lasos midvorim haya lo la kosam la kofa ma shezanu. Tosfos says the diak is that why is he doing it with words? He should take a stick to beat him up if he's not doing the halacha. It must be that he can't beat him up because it wasn't the halacha, but he was reprimanding him until he got the son to support the father.
The Iyamart is the question.
It's explaining the proof. If you say that it was not minadin,
it's not the law.
then it makes sense.
Then it makes sense. So it's not a question.
But that would be good.
That
But
would
if
make
he's
sense
Eli
to enforce
Yamrit
it.
that it's the din, then it doesn't make sense.
Then why is he? Then that's the question. Why is he?
Being maaseh.
And then Eloy explains it,
What?
and then we get an answer.
That's the proof. It's a good proof that it's not the law. We don't pass like this. That's the end of the Gemara. That was the second Takara Zusha. We don't pass like them. It
So
comes out.
what did Tosfos say?
Tosfos says that the word asiyinu means with words and not with a stick, and that's the Gemara's deal. Why is he reprimanding him with words? He should beat him up. If the line says this is the law, so you don't.
If it's not the law.
If it's
then
not the
it's
law,
works
then
good
why is he
that
just saying with words? He should beat him up.
It says Iyamart Shlema Lav Dina Mishum Bachi Asina.
Then it's good why he had to convince him with words. But if you'd say that it's a
good
din,
that he
then
had
as
to
the
convince him with
boy.
word because it's not the law. But if it's the word,
So
then why
then-
did he only use words? I
Right.
see. Why didn't he?
And
What is this? Is it reprimanding?
the halacha comes out that if someone writes his estate to his children, it comes out that we cannot force him in a din to support the parents.
Because it's not their money anymore. Their money's not. it's
Right,
not
he
their
gave it
money.
away. Shouldn't have given it away.
It's
He gave it away.
strictly-
So we don't pass
one
like that's the thing. We don't pass like that. That's what the Gemara says. And both Gemaras so far, it says we don't pass them like this.
Into the Hanhaga of the Dayan of the Chachamim. This is a menschlichkeit. This is a simple.
But the question is if you could force him or not. So we had two Gemaras so far, both the Kanasusha and both of them we don't pass them like. The first one was that you have to support your children, and the more comes out, we don't pass them like that. We reprimand him and we ridicule him, but you don't force him unless he's rich and you take stuff out of him. And the second one was about if someone gives all of his estate to his children, that the Kanasusha was that he support the parents, but also don't pass like that. We'll reprimand them and shame him, and maybe we'll get someone to kiss the feet of the one who's able to accomplish it,
Words,
but-
but we can't
but you can't force him.
force.
One more Gemara just to finish off. One more. We're overtime already, but a little bit more. This way people know. If a person wants to give presents, he shouldn't give more than a fifth. The word mevazvez in Hebrew became misused, and the word used mevazvez means to waste. To waste. What?
What does it mean here?
Right. And
Right,
the word
that's what-
mevazvez, that's what the word mevazvez means. In the word in Hebrew nowadays, someone bizbazti, people use the word to mean I wasted, I spent, overspent. But it's a mistranslation. It means if someone gives presents, which means like here it's talking about giving to.
So what does that mean?
If someone wants to give tzedakah,
Give tzedakah to ani.
don't give more than a fifth of your estate. Don't give more than a fifth.
He spreads his money's out.
What does mavaz mean to spread out?
That's overly gracious.
The word mavaz means to give a present. It's pasuk in the Nil. It says two times this word in the Nil. It talks about presents. There's someone over there that the king wanted somebody to say the interpretation of the dream. After the Namakomas, one is in the Nil Perek base pasuk 6, and then in the Nil Perek 5 pasuk 17. Two times it has this word as Aramaic, and it means giving a present. Giving a present. So a person wants, the word means a present. Nowadays it's used as wasting. In Hebrew today, some says bizbazti, that means I overspent, I wasted money. But that's not real. And people understand it means right, it means wasting time. So
Yeah.
that word is a mistake. It's a modern Hebrew mistake.
It's a modern Hebrew mistake because it really means to give
a present.
To give a present. So he gave a present of time of a Torah.
How would you say in Hebrew?
You're saying whoever did this, Ben Yehuda, did it wrong?
He might have meant it giving a lavish present, but it
Give
doesn't
out.
mean to waste. It doesn't mean to waste. Nowadays it came to mean to waste. I don't know what he meant when he first invented it, but that's how it's used nowadays, and it's misuse of the word.
Okay.
Even though Chazal uses means in the extreme.
Don't give more than a fifth. If you want to give presents, don't give more than a fifth.
I'm saying in the extreme.
What do you mean in this?
Why do we use, I mean, unless we could say matanas, or why mavazves, if mavazves and matanas, well, what's the new word?
But that's what the word means. What can I do? That's what the word means.
I hear you're Makairis for that, but Chazal use it in terms of the extreme.
It's saying that is okay. The article translates it. He's giving a lavish present. Don't be over lavish.
Which is not necessarily.
But the word doesn't mean over lavish. The word means even if you want to say it, it means lavish. But how does it translate the word lavish? What's the translation of the word lavish? Okay, that's the point. Don't give more than a fifth of your estate.
That's a normal person.
No, it doesn't say normal. It says the most you're allowed to give is more than a fifth. You're not allowed to give more than a fifth. If someone gives a present, Rashi says the poor, he shouldn't give more than a fifth. Because he might himself become poor, and he himself is going to need to come on to other people. So keep 4/5 of your estate for yourself.
That's the end of that price. That's the end of that price.
Right. Oh no, maybe continue. It continues. It was somebody wanted to give more than a fifth, and his friend did not allow him. Who was his friend? Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua did not allow this person to give more than a fifth. Rabbi Yeshua. Some say Rabbi Yeshua was the one who wanted to give more than a fifth, and Rabbi Kiva did not let him. Where is it? His friend did not, his colleague did not allow him.
Meaning he was a Talmud Chacham, is Chaver?
I'm not sure what you see. It says there was someone who wanted to give more than a fifth, and his colleague did not allow him because of this halacha. And who was that? The colleague was Rabbi Yeshua. Some say Rabbi Yeshua was the one who wanted to give it more than a fifth, and Rabbi Kiva didn't let him.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I got lost with there's Rabbi Yosheveh, the Amri
No. There was a person here. I'll do it on the highlighting over here. Let's get a highlight.
And who
There was
it?
there was a echad, Maisa be'echad. There was somebody,
Yeah.
and then there was a chaveru. Who was the chaveru of Rabbi Yeshua? Then there's a different gear. Then there's a different girsa that Rabbi Yeshua was the person that wanted to give it, and Rabbi Kiva was the one who didn't allow. Either there was an echad, we don't know his name, unknown name, anonymous person that he wanted to give more, and Rabbi Yeshua didn't let. Different version. Some say that Rabbi Yeshua was the one who wanted to give, and more than a fifth, and Rabbi Kiva did not allow him. I can do it like this. Does that help?
Can you just read it? I think we just read it.
There was a story that somebody that wanted to give more than a fifth, and his friend did not allow him. Who was that friend of Yeshua?
Period.
Others have a different view. There was a Yeshua who wanted more, did not allow him, who was Rabbi Kiva.
But they,
Thank you.
Rabbi Kiva was a friend of Rabbi Yeshua.
wasn't his rabbi.
Right?
It wasn't his rabbi. It was,
Chaveru. Amar Nachman, Yitem Rabbi Yaakov. Micro, where's the reference from a pasuk that not to give more than a fifth? Everything you're going to give me, I'm going to give you a tenth. So the pasuk tried as Aser Asren, I'll give you a tenth. But the Gemara is dashing Aser Asrenu means 2/10. And
no,
2/10,
because the double.
Don't give more than 20.
2/10 is a fifth.
Oh, 2/10 is it's 20%. I'm not 20%.
Uh-huh. So that's a fifth. So that's a drash. The pasuk means Aser Asrenu means I'll give a tenth.
I surely
And the
should
drash
tithe,
is
right?
right. And the drash is to say a 10 to 10, 2/10, which means a fifth. But the Gemara says it's not true. If you take off a tenth, how much you have left? A fifth. If you take off a tenth, you have 9/10 left. Then you take out a tenth out of the 9/10. It's not the same. It's not the same.
19%. It's 19%.
Ashi Asrenu lebasra kikama. Since it says the word Asra, I'm going to tenth tithe it. So it means the same tithing. Of course, the whole thing is a drasha. It doesn't mean that in Pashup Shat. But in the drasha, there's a remez that it means the same kind of a tenth. 2 equal tenths. I'm going to give 2 equal tenths, which means a fifth. So that's a remez to this. It's not a deraisa. It's a remez. Like it says, it's kinu. Usha is kinu. It's a remez. The Gemara finishes off. Amr Rav Shimi Barashi. Ushmos halolo mismatos v'holchos. L'simanecha ketanim kasvu ubizbezu. So we had 3. If we go back and zoom out, we had 3 statements from Usha Eskinu, all in the yellow. We had first Usha Eskinu about the Banim Ketanim, then that if you have to support them. The second one was about a person who wrote his estate that he still should be supported by his children. And the third one was about not giving more than a fifth. So in the quotation, all 3 of them, Rabbi Ela said them. Rabbi Ela said all 3 of them. But in each time, he said it. How does it go?
That's the second one. Amar Rabbi Elai.
They're all on Rabbi Ela, but the first one is Rabbi Ela in the name of Rosh Lakish, in the name of Rabbi Bar Chanina. That's 3 people. Rabbi Ela in the name of Rosh Lakish, in the name of Rabbi Bar Chanina. That's in the second. And then the second one was Rabbi Ela in the name of Rosh Lakish. So it's not in the name of Rosh Lakish, in the name of somebody else. And the third one is Rabbi Ela alone. So he's just pointing out that the 3 statements of Rabbi Ela got less and less. First, it was Rabbi Ela in the name of Rosh Lakish, in the name of Rabbi Chanina. And then the second one is Rabbi Ela named Rosh Lakish. The third one is Rabbi Ela alone. That's what he says here. Ushmos halalu mismatas valchos. These 3 statements are getting less and less in the name of the author. The simanecha, a way to remember the order. Ketanim, kasvu, bizbuzu. That's the simon of the 3 members. One is about ketanim, if they're supposed to be supported. Kasvu is about writing. It's just a mnemonic. How to remember the order. That ketanim, kasvu, bizbuzu. That the minors they wrote and they gave presents. That's a way to remember. That's a mnemonic how to remember the order of the 3 statements. And the point is to say that it gets less and less.
First was Ketanim.
The second one was kasvu, and the third one is bizbezu. Kasvu means if someone wrote his estate to his children. Here's the word over here. Just to highlight the word. Here's the word.
It's on the other page.
That's the word here.
Where's the first
Ketanim.
one? The first one's on the previous page.
Yes, there it is.
Where is it?
Right, it's about 10 lines down.
So Ketanim is the first one.
Right, that's the word ketanim over here.
What's
That's the
the
word over
second
here.
one? What's the key word?
Here's
we're
the
looking for?
ketanim. And here's the next word where it talks about the kasvu, kosev. And then the third one is about Damavazbes. That's what you have here. Ketanim kasvu bizbezu.
Is that page 9 already?
That's page 9.
Yeah.
So again, here are the 3 over here.
The first one is that on it's also on
I'm with base.
That's Rish Lakish is the first one.
Avila, Rish Lakish, Abida Bar Chanina. That's the first one.
What's the second one?
Second one is about 10 lines after that. I'm Rabbi Mashlokish about the Kosev Kol Nechasav Labanav. First bottom line is Rish Lakish. And the third one is on Daf Nun, and it's 4 lines from the top on the Vazvez.
Oh, Vazvez, yes, that's cool.
Ketanam Kasvu, Bizbizu. Yashikar, everybody. Thank you. Sorry. Sorry for going overtime for all those that are waiting. Yashikar, thank you. We'll be back in a minute with Pirkei Avos.